Hi everyone, this is Arthur Diniz, and he is going to talk about how he is using data for community growth. Please, let's give him some applause.
Thank you, Sergio. So the reason why I'm laughing here is because I just did another talk and it's the same slide presenting me. But I'm going to do again because people arrived and yeah, anyway, to also take the recording. So yeah, I'm a Debian contributor since 2019. And this year I became a Debian maintainer. For work, I am a system development engineer at AWS. And that's my nick. You can find email or RSC and all the other methods of communication. I was born in Brazil, and currently I'm living in Ireland, and my hobby is doing kite surfing. And that's a picture of me doing in Cumbuco, in Brazil. If you want the slides for this presentation, you can point your camera to the slide, or you can get the link in the pad for this presentation, this talk. So for the agenda, I will start talking about the Debian Brasilia local community, the tools we have there. And then I'll start moving a little bit more to the data part, which is how we are doing ETL. And how we are creating your data lake and data warehouse, visualization, and the next steps we have for the community. Be aware that I'm not from data. I'm not a data engineer, so I might say some stuff here that is not the right thing, the correct thing, so keep that in mind. To start, so what is Debian Brasilia? That's a community we created in 2019. And we basically gather people together to contribute to Debian, and we've been growing a lot since 2019. And yeah, we are located in the middle of Brazil, and that's the point in the map. You see it there, and that's our logo. Usually we do weekly meetings, and we use the GT instance to everyone join the GT meetings, and we also have people from outside Brasilia joining as well. And that's one of the reasons that in this DebConf we migrated the Debian Brazilian community to become Debian Devel BR. So now we are only one single team that people are joining all around the world. And basically that's one of the things we do. To document our meetings, we use a pad, and that's where we started first. The first attempt of getting data in a place that we can reuse later. After that, we decided that this methodology of adding packages to be reviewed and how to make things not very good, because even storing in a pad, we lose track of that. So we decided to start using board.debian.org. That's a redirect for our board in Salsa. And in there, we start putting more information and adding one issue for each package we are working. So it can be an NMU, or it can be a new package, or it can be just fixing a bug, or anything related to that. I can quickly show you some other information that we also add to the issues. We have a lot of comments on how to fix stuff. It's in Portuguese. No, actually, this is in English, so this is a good one for everyone to understand. We try to be very verbose here because this is data and we can reuse that later on. So since the creation of the issue, we try to put as many information we have on the description. And when we get to the point of reviewing things, we start adding more and more. So the review process, the comments. So this is an example of Guilherme Puida. He's here with Samuel that did a talk today as well. And you see that they are talking a lot of things here. And this is very important for the work I've been creating in the community, because then we can work on that after. So 1 year ago, I was talking to Lucas Canachio, a member of the community, and we were with those questions in mind. And those questions were How do I know the health of the community? How do I get insights of what we are doing? How do I know if we're making the right decisions? Because in the past we did a lot of mistakes of losing people because we choose not to do something or something else. Or like, how can I track what people are doing? Those are the questions that if we don't create a process and load that data in a place or collect that, we will never could be able to answer it. Our first attempt, this is not a good attempt, but we have this weekly meeting, so I just created a spreadsheet and tried to put who was joining the meeting with the name. And that didn't work very well because people join with weird names, and sometimes they just join and they leave the meeting. And it's a lot of work required to get someone, and that person every time needs to be looking at who is joining the meeting and what's the name of the person. And sometimes people just don't want to be recognized that they're joining the meeting. That's totally normal. So we move away from that solution, and we decided to create an application for that. And this application is just like a proxy. So in this form here is saying, like, if you want to send to show that you are joining the meeting, please add your name and your email. And if you would like to provide that data, try to provide the same name and email that you are contributing to Debian. So the same name and email for your commits and everything else that you use in Debian. What this service does is when you connect, it will save that information from that form in a bucket, and then we'll redirect you to the instance. This solution also solves another thing that we are having. So sometimes Debian JIT instance is not fully functional, and putting 30 people in a meeting there was like making the service very slow, and some people were having issues with microphone and some other things. So this service here also, if you have an instance with problems, we can quickly select another one, and people with just one link, which is meet.debianbsb.org, will be redirected to the healthy instance. And this way, we don't need to keep rewriting the link every time. This is a JSON payload that we are storing. I hope you guys can see. So that's basically what we are collecting. There's nothing, like a lot of information here, but the real information needed is like the name, email, and the created at. That's the only information that is good for us to collect. So another service that we created a couple of months, actually years already, was this chat. So it's a IRC client, and the reason why we decided to host this client was because a lot of people, the Gen Z people in the University of Brasilia joining the community, they are not aware of IRC, they don't know what it is, and they just join Telegram. That it's totally fine, we have a bridge for that. But we want them to use where Debian is, so try to move them to the IRC. So this client is very useful because when you create your account, it will connect to OFTC and will join the Debian BSB channel instantly. So you don't need to take care of anything or host or have a bouncer or anything like that. And another thing that this instance gave us is the possibility to store logs of those channels. So this is an example of one conversation. This is in Portuguese, but with this log, you can see that we have the timestamp of what the person sends, the name of the person, and what is the message. So then we can use some kind of regex and filter that and start counting it. Or and another thing here is that you see that we have a bot, which is the GitLab matrix there on top. That's a bot that is sending information from our board that I just showed you in the chat. So if we add a review, it will show here. So they are both connected all the time. And during this process, we need to filter that data and do some other things in the middle, so we don't get that as user data a normal person data is just a bot. So after giving this context, we get to the requirements. So the requirements, for me, was like, it needs to be something in Python, because at least I know how to maintain. That's the language that I most use normally in the daily basis. It needs to be fully open source, so I cannot host or create a bucket in S3, for example, AWS. It needs to have a self-hosted solution for that. Will not be real-time data. So we're not streaming data. If you change something, it will not appear instantly on the visualization part. Can contain full snapshots of data. So we are doing, for some services, we are doing snapshots. It means that we query the full board, for example, and at that day, at that timestamp, and we keep doing every period. Because we use the tags in that board to track, and that information is useful for us, for example, comparing how long it took to review an issue. Without snapshots, we cannot have that information because we don't know when we retagged the issue. GitLab doesn't give us that information. So that's why we can use snapshots for that. It needs to be extensible so we can add more data sources and collect more information and filter. And finally, we need to be able to see all that thing in a web interface, and also we have to be able to do a full load of the data set or incremental load, because data will grow and at some point will be unmanageable or very compute costing to run the full load. So going to the ETL process, the ETL process is composed of three things. The first one is extract, where you can retrieve and get all the data. The transform part, where you need to understand what is the data you're getting, and maybe like filter, remove things, and flat information, and all those kind of stuff, this crazy stuff. And last, we have the load part, where you're going to decide a format to store that data in a warehouse. So the extract, for the extract part, I decided, okay, I need to find the sources. And the sources we have today is the Meet app that I showed, the chat, which is the Convos, the IRC client with all the messages from all the bridges, the Salsa issues and comments, and last, the UDD, and for now we are collecting data for the uploads history. On the format, I need to understand what I'm collecting. So I'm collecting like logs, JSON, and I'm doing SQL queries to UDD to get the information. When creating automation, you can probably be doing like cron scripts or streaming, but as I said before, we are not streaming data. We are just loading we're just setting a cron and reloading that data. And for saving, we could have like a bucket or a database to load that data and to retrieve as well the raw data. So I decided to go with a bucket and decided to choose Min.io, which is an open source solution for buckets. It's very compliant with S3. It has the same API, so it was very handy for start using that. So as you can see in this picture, you see all the buckets that I created for storing those files initially. And here I'm showing how I organize that data, because not just throw data inside a bucket and hope to organize it later. You need to keep doing that in every stage. So I was like, okay, I'm going to create a bucket. I'm going to separate that data in year, month, day, and I said is extensible. So this number after here is, you see, this is the number of the group or the repo we are working on. So we are storing the issues in this ID here, which is the group ID, actually the repo ID we are using. And here you see each one of these is an issue in Salsa that we are storing a GZ, and we are also compacting, doing extra compacting in the end before saving here. And you might be thinking like, why we have all those files again and again here being posted? Because this is a snapshot example. So we are doing snapshots of the complete board every time. That's why we can have duplicated data here, but that's not an issue for now. It's the raw data. That's the thing. We are not changing anything until now. So then we get to the transform part. What we can do with transform? Mostly we do like we remove empty fields. There might be some things in JSON that you want to remove. Flattening nested objects, that's a very common one. So the final table for querying stuff will not need to be flattened. You cannot have nested objects. And JSON has a lot of that, so we need to create this table and keep it flat. And last, we maybe have some use cases of removing PII in the middle. And the load part, we need to choose a framework to load that data in a format that we can then use later. For that, if you go search, you might find 3 technologies today that use like a table format, open source. We have Apache Iceberg, Apache Hudi, and Delta Lake. They all have different use cases, but for simplicity, I decided to use Iceberg. And last, you need to load that data into another bucket that I'm calling here warehouse. So what is Apache Iceberg? Apache Iceberg is this open table format for analytics data set. It gives you a way of use SQL, expressive SQL to query your data after loading it. It has a full schema evolution and header partitioning. So that means you don't need to take care of how the data will be partitioned. So you just create a data frame, you load it using Iceberg, and the framework will handle the rest for you. Say, we'll create the catalog and do all the things. Also, you can use time travel and rollback, like a time machine. That's very useful for some people. And data compaction. This is how, a little bit, very high level on how Iceberg architecture works. It will create a catalog in the top one with the DB one and table one. And it's storing JSON files inside the metadata layer. You might see like a lot of JSON files, and those files are kind of pointers to where your data is. And the reason why we have a bunch of metadata files is because we need them for versioning and rolling back and doing crazy things. So imagine this picture as a bunch of pointers until we get to the raw data. And that makes the process very fast to be queried and be able to use all those features. And to be able to export that data, there's another service that I decided to use, which is Trino. And Trino, it's a SQL querying engine that makes possible for us to export that data and consume that data that Iceberg is providing and is stored in a warehouse. So with a simple SQL query for sending to Trino, we will be able to get all the information that we loaded. For example, I have here the name of my DB is called just DB, and the table is called UDD. And this is how I can collect data from this period here. That might be very complex to understand, but I'll try my best here. This is the full diagram of the solution we came. So on the left side, you'll be able to see the service that I just presented. Meet, which is the first one, just sent the data directly to the bucket called Meet. So we don't need a cron job for that. All the other services like Convos, the IRC, the chat, Salsa, and UDD, we need the cron job to collect that data and save that data in each individual bucket that we just see. In yellow, so the orange part is where we have the buckets. And so the raw data is in that part. And the yellow is the event part that is basically doing the partial load. It's handling the partial load. So with that, Mini.io has this event destination that keeps track of the objects coming to the bucket. And we can send those events and store those events in a Redis or a Keyval service. And later we can process that. So we don't need to do a full load. And this is one way we can keep track of that thing. We also can use webhooks and a bunch of other ways to do the same thing. But I decided to go with Redis or Keyval. After that, we have this Spark job, which is the brain here to load all the data and to transform, to get all the data, all the raw data, to transform the data, and to load that data in a warehouse. These Spark jobs, those Spark jobs can be full or partial load. It will depend. If it's a partial load, we'll consume from the Redis. If it's a full load, we'll look all the objects in the buckets, and we'll load all them. After loading, we'll create this table format, reading, like defining a schema. We define how just like a database, you create a table, and you define what each field will be, like a date or a string or an int. So this part, the Spark job also does before loading to the warehouse, which is the one you see right here. We also need a catalog that is separate from the framework, and this catalog keeps tracks of informations of the table, because the warehouse just stores the data and how to query that data. So we have this catalog that stores the table formatting and how they're changing over time. So if we rename a table, it will keep track in the catalog, not in the warehouse. We are splitting services there. Lastly, we have Trino, and Trino is using the catalog, so it's looking at the catalog to prepare your query, and then going to the warehouse, grabbing all the data. And for visualization, I choose Streamlit, which is a framework that it's a Python framework that allows you to create cool dashboards, and you can create like query, whatever. You can just use pandas, create your data frame, and present in Streamlit. So I'll be doing a demo. Let's see if everything will work fine here. I'll start showing the lab we have. So I was just talking about Streamlit, but before moving data to Streamlit, I decided to deploy one more extra service that is not there, which is Jupyter Notebooks. And Jupyter Notebooks helps creating and, yeah, okay. Let me just, okay. You guys can see? Yeah. Don't need to look at this coding part. It's fine. I just want to show the output of it. This code will be available later on, but why you can use Jupyter Notebook is basically as a lab. So you can start querying and see how the data is being processed and create small dashboards to then move those dashboards to Streamlit. And this is the process I did here. For example, the meet, you see, we had a meeting early today from the Debian Brasilia team, and they presented some dashboards. Those dashboards was basically generated from Streamlit. But after Streamlit, I just plot them here and try to mess up a little bit with the data and try to generate insights. And this is a good place. Jupyter is a good place for that, because you don't need to load the data all the time. It stores in like steps, so you don't need to run each step every time. Once you load the data, you can just do the other steps, and that makes things much faster to test if you have a large data set. So you can see that we have a bunch of queries that I was doing here, and one of them, for example, is that we are able to see the top 5 people connecting to our meetings. So you see here in the month 5 of 2024, we have this blank line on top. That's because we have anonymous data. Anonymous data is the first one, is empty. The second one we have, for example, Daniel, Sergio, Samuel, and Puida. I think most of those guys are here as well. So we can generate something like that, but that's not the final thing we have. And then for that, we use Streamlit. And Streamlit is querying Trino the same way as Spark query is doing the query as well. But we are presenting, this will be exported. So for Streamlit, I created 4 views. So will be Salsa, Uploads, Chat, and Meet. And each one of them, they have different information here. Let me just zoom out a little bit. So the first one is that we have all the uploads history from Salsa. Sorry, we have all the Salsa issues. And here you can see that we have 162 issues created. We also can select specific issues, so we can apply filters if they are like in a doing state or a review state, so I can quickly select here and get only the issues that are in review, and you should look at that very fast. We also can see closed issues and opened issues. By default, open is the thing here. Going down a little bit, we start, let me just move to see all of them. So you can see like issues created by month and the cumulative issues over time. Going down a little bit more, you have like created by month and the comments. And basically that's what I created for Salsa until now. Going to uploads as well, we have more information here. And for uploads, we have some other options, like if you want to get a specific person in the community, you can just put the person name there, and you'll be able to filter. Sometimes this flicky is not showing. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, okay. So I just filter all the uploads history with my email, and you see that the list changed. So now I'm seeing only everything that I uploaded. So this is like a front end for UDD we can use to see data without doing like SQL queries on the terminal. And you also see the uploads by month. I can select a specific period of that data. Oh, I don't know what happened here, but let me go back. So I can select a specific part of that data to see, and I also can see the cumulative over time. You can see like for a while I was stuck, I didn't do any uploads, and then I continue growing after a while. And so you can track your work, and you see everyone in the community, how they're working and how they're doing. Moving to chat, you also can see, then that's the convos, that's the chat we use is a bridge with Matrix, Telegram, and all the communication channels we use. And here you can see like the chat messages by month, the chat messages by week, and you see that the data is matching between those. So if you compare the number of messages and the number of uploads, you can match that during that period we are communicating more, we are doing more stuff. And if you look at the uploads, they are growing. So you can basically start matching all those informations, and you see that everything is going up. And when we get, for example, in December, that we stop for New Year's Eve, or we do something else, like no one is doing packaging at that time, at least in Brazil. So you see that the graph will go down, and everything go down, like upload as well. So that's very nice to see, getting data from all those systems. And going for the meet, here you see data from attendees and in the meetings during all over like weeks and months. You can see meet attendees. People from Brazil just mentioned that those spikes are the weekly meetings. You can see very easy here, like we are very present every Thursday. And so that's very nice to plot them here and see all that information. All right, so moving to the next steps. Now that you guys see all that dashboard we are building, we also have some extra things to do here, and the next steps we have is how we can export that process data to contributors.debian.org. That would be very awesome to create, to send that data there, because we could also show and present that people are contributing in the Debian platform. We can get more relevant data, so there's a bunch of things in UDD, for example, that we are still not loading, so we need to expand that. We need to get more data, and we need to choose what data we want to collect and transform. And also make the service available to all. For now, it's only running locally, and we want to expose that so everyone could see what we are doing, and maybe like use that to determine if a person for Debian Brazil are able to go, for example, to the next DebConf. Like people from Bursary team could use this to see the contribution of that person. And also find more use cases of the data. And here I just want to show one example of what we can do. And this is one of the next things I want to, which is I I really want to get all these data sets and inject in a Llama model, AI model, to understand what we are talking and to be able to query later on. Because one problem that we are facing today is that every person that joins the community, we need to answer the same questions. How to fix, how to fire a patch, how to do things. And all that information that we are collecting from the comments and the merge requests and in the chat, we already fixed that. We just need to load that data in an AI and make that agent aware of it and be able to explain for that newcomer how to fix the issue. So this is one of the examples I'm trying to work from now, and I hope to have something to present next year about that. I think that will be very cool to have an AI helping newcomers in the community. And that's all I have for today. I was expecting to have 20 minutes, and I got an extra time, so I'm just open for questions.
If you have any questions, please raise your hand.
Hi. Thanks a lot for this interesting talk. I just have a couple of questions. The first question is all the software you are using packaged for Debian?
No, it's not. Mm-hmm. There's some efforts to package, for example, Min.io right now, but we are using a bunch of services that are not fully packaged.
Yeah, that was my question, because I think something is not packaged, but it would be cool to have for lots of reasons, but I know that's also hot, so just
yeah, it would be awesome to have. Most of them are Python, so might not be very hard at all. And
yeah, thank you. And the second question, I'm doing this team matrix stuff, which has quite some overlap with what you are doing. If I would have time, I would talk to you within more detail, but I actually need to confess I do not have time to do anything myself. I'm just keep it running. So if someone is interested, we could talk about it, because there might be some additional information about it. I'm grabbing some commits from Salsa for specific teams. I am doing a lot of queries on UDD, and I'm somehow grabbing data from mailing lists. And I have, what's also quite interesting, some matches between names, because people, you will know it, that people are using different names. Yeah. Okay, then we might talk on this on next DebConf, if I'm maybe
perfect.
Not
we can talk. Yeah.
First, thank you for your talk. I'm not an infra person. My knowledge there is very limited. So my question is, why not just use a PostgreSQL for the infrastructure?
Well, there's a bunch of issues just by using Postgres. If you want to have a good, for example, I mentioned that messages getting for chat, there's some trash messages from bots, so you need to have a way to filter data. You can use SQL for the final stage instead of loading in the bucket. That's something possible. But since we have limited resources in this stack, I didn't want to deploy another service just to store data. If you already have buckets storing objects there, I just wanted to reuse that instead of creating a new one. Because we only have one virtual machine for, I think, will be like 10 containers running. And we're already low, and one of the things we're trying to do right now is expand that VM RAM and get more CPU. So the only reason is not spin another service. But you can do that.
Any more questions?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. So this was more of a technical talk, how to implement it and the data that you already have. Do you or your team think about doing an analysis on improvement of the actual data, not how you gather it, but for example, there is an analysis called principal component analysis, which is 100 years old, where you can know the standard deviation between these variables, and since you have 10 or more variables, you could know how to focus in something specific. For example, you mentioned that during the days of the week on Thursday there's not much communication or things like that. So how to improve the community based on the data that you have and some analysis that could help on that. So does the team have these ideas?
Yeah, one of the things that I did in DebConf was to collect feedback on what people would like to see on those dashboards, and I have a bunch of them here noted. But as I said, I'm not a data I'm not a data engineer, so ChatGPT is helping me doing those queries, and it's very hard for me. I know Python, but I don't know a lot of things on data. So if you are interested, I can give you access as well to this data set because it's public anyway. And as I said, Jupyter Notebooks is there. If you like to connect any sites, you can just make your queries and play with that. But I started building those dashboards when I arrived here, and happily we have something because it was very hard for me to create all of those dashboards. But I have plans in the future to expand that.
Hi. I was not here at the beginning of the talk, so I don't know if this was mentioned, but do you have any opt-in, opt-out? Is there consent from the members of the community that you're collecting this data? Like we do in contributors.org?
Well, all the data collected, it's public. So IRC is not encrypted, so everyone can get the information there, right? We don't have consensus. The only thing is that the Meet app that I show is optional. So you don't need to put any information there if you want to, like email and name. But I believe we should have a consensus of showing that information here. For now, the list of uploads, it's a list that we manually need to add people. And normally it's only people in the Debian community join the weekly meetings that we add there. And none of them asked to remove them until now. But that's something important probably to ask every time we're adding someone in that list to be queried and added to the data source. But all the data is public, like UDD and all the things we are collecting.
Yeah, I know. I know everything is public, but when you aggregate data, it's just another level of that we need to ask our users. So I would just suggest then that maybe right now, since you are a community, like it wouldn't be that hard to collect consent from everyone, and as every time you add a new member to the website, then, and I know it's not public yet, so it's okay, but I think even to include that in contributors.debian.org, we would have to pay attention to that. So.
Okay, yeah. For including contributions, probably we need to create another service to export and add to the format, and probably in that service we'll be able to add that consent to export to. Yeah. Thank you for the feedback.
Any more questions? So I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Arthur, for the talk. And let's please thank you, Arthur, for the talk.
Thank you.